the whole of the Olympic saga has been dreadfully mismanaged from inception to where we are today. And it's not one person that's at fault, it's a lot of people, mainly government. I call them all government because I don't want to differentiate between left side and right side, or Boris or Ken. I think they're all pretty tatty, really, aren't they? I mean, let's be honest, most of these politicians you wouldn't let run a newsagent, would you? And yet they're running the country. The decision-making process on the Olympic Stadium has been fundamentally flawed from day one. I mean, first of all, they built the wrong stadium. That's a good start, isn't it? First of all, they decided to cut back on the money they wanted to spend before they knew what it was going to cost. So Ken Livingstone, Tessa Jowell made a decision to create this Meccano of a stadium with a running track in front of it, which those of you who watch football will know doesn't work. And also, those of you that enjoy athletics, as we all do, know that there are only probably 10 days a year when you want an athletics track. So the whole principle was flawed, and it's gone from one judicial review to one inquiry after another for the last 6 years. So they keep getting it wrong, and all I'm asking for is, look, could our little club share with West Ham, because we think that's the ethos of the Olympics, the community spirit, as they do in Europe. And for some reason, West Ham don't want to share with Leyton Orient. So we move into the Olympic Stadium. What do we do then? We turn around and say, OK, we know we've only got 5,000 fans, so every youngster in London under 18, you're free. Come in, come and watch it. What does the community really do? We turn around and say, every serviceman, every full-time or part-time serviceman, you're free. Every old age pensioner, you're free, because it doesn't matter to us. We are not in football for money. We're in football for the community spirit. Unfortunately, whilst politicians pay lip service to the community, they don't really know how to spell the word, let alone what it means. And that's the frustration for me, and they can't be allowed to get away with it. We were talking to an amateur boxer just before the Olympics. And, you know, where I come from, we were all skint. People used to start fighting because they were poor. This kid's turned up in a brand new BMW. He's on 35 grand a year, tax-free. I said, what do you want to turn pro for? Carl Froch, probably our greatest fighter for many, many a year, he lives on 500 quid a week. 500, and he won't spend more than £500 a week because he wants to think poor. He says, all the rest, the millions are in the bank. He says, I'll look at that when I've retired, but I don't want to lose 1, 2, 5% of my mental state. I have to think poor. And we have to say to Carl Froch, just as he's getting in the ring, the last thing we have to say to him is, Carl, you get beat tonight, it costs you a fortune. And that is the last thought in his mind before the referee says seconds out, round one. You've got to think poor. And actually, in our businesses, how many times do we think poor? We should think poor all the time. Every time we look at our expenditure, think poor. Would I spend that if I was skint? Have I got complacent? This is the overlap in between sport and business. We've taken a little sport like darts, which was, again, the things I like about sport, because I don't forget my roots, and I hope I stay true to them. I like sports that are accessible to everybody, number one. I like sports that are inexpensive to play, so there's no barriers to entry. I like sports that, especially, that have a strong community feel. And in the old days, of course, the darts and the darts leagues. So it was a pub game. It has originated from a pub game. People like characters. People like to associate with different characters. So when we came into the darts world, and I remember walking to the Circus Tavern, and my first remark was, I can smell the money. I see people drinking. Obviously, it's a smoke-filled atmosphere in those days. I see them writing out their betting slips. I see them making the noise. I see them getting excited about class sport, you know, world-class sport. So that made me excited. So then we went into the characters. So we start off, you know, look at every individual. You know, in darts, it's all about nicknames. It's about walk-on music. It's about dress code. It's about, you know, sense of humour, or even being very thick, as some of them are. You know, maximise everything about those people. Then sell the story. Now, the big thing comes from activity. So you need lots and lots of events. So these guys have got a chance to play and improve. You need to shed loads of money. So you need to give them a lifestyle that becomes aspirational beyond their normal environment. So, you know, you're not talking about Premier League footballer, but say the top darts player would earn two and a bit million pounds a year, but there's quite a few of them now on $750,000, nudging $1 million, which for darts is just like, wow, where did that come from? These guys come out of jobs where they're earning 400 quid a week. We all started playing ping pong. Again, affordable, accessible, my two biggest things. With a piece of wood and a bit of sandpaper on. That was, and it made that lovely noise, the prison noise, donk donk, Forrest Gump, you remember that? And then of course the manufacturers got involved and said, well, we're not making any money out of this, so we're going to do foam bats with big pimples on, so gets more spin on the ball and the ball travels faster, but also the bat costs about 100 quid instead of a fiver. Well, over the course of the years, 30 years ago at Madison Square Garden, there was 18,000 people watching the US Open Table Tennis Championships with a hard bat. Today, the winner of the US Open gets $2,000. Ping pong as a television sport has died because it's so spin-orientated now, with the Chinese especially, that it's no longer televisual. There are no rallies. So I went to Sky and said, look, I think this can work, and they backed me with 16 hours live TV, and they put in great production, and we did a fantastic event, and it ended up with a Russian and a Nigerian in the final, fortunately an American and an Englishman in the semi-finals. The standard of play was awesome. It was exciting, because people were jumping around, making these big smashes, and the crowds were oohing and ahhing. Some of the crowd dressed up in fancy dress costume. I don't know where they got that idea from.